Tonight, Governor John Kasich will deliver his final State of the State address in his hometown of Westerville. With me now is our Wright State political science expert, Dr. Lee Hanna, with what the governor may touch on tonight. Thanks so much for coming in. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You know, we're always kind of speculating what will come out of State of the States, but typically it's a lot of celebrating what they consider their wins. What are some of the governor's wins you think while in office?
In some ways, he'll return to the stump speech that we heard in 2016 in terms of lowering the deficit and, bringing in more jobs to the area. So he'll certainly talk about that. And, Ohio we're doing okay. We're not in, the top of the states in terms of growth, but we're certainly not in the bottom either. So we're kind of middling there. So the way that he frames that will be interesting to see. And I think one thing to watch will be to what extent is he using this as a national address to talk about broader issues? Will he separate from President Trump on gun control, on tariffs? Those are a couple of topics that we might see versus, how much time he spends reflecting, kind of taking his victory lap and just talking about the state of Ohio.
Which you bring up a good point, because that is the big question. What is next for the governor?
Yes.
You mentioned during the commercial break, you can't turn on a Sunday morning program anymore without seeing him speaking. And there's a lot of speculation that he may be eyeing that run for the presidential office still. Do you think that that is something that we'll continue to see kind of play out tonight during the State of the State?
Yes. So I think he is certainly positioning himself to keep the door open at this point. And one thing that he does have is when he ran in 2016, he was relatively unknown outside of our state. And there were 16, 17, 18 candidates. So even if he were the perfect candidate, it would have taken a long time for him to have really been discovered. So his hope or his positioning right now, we know that he's never really been that supportive of President Trump. And were he to find himself in a position that, come winter of 2020, President Trump announces he's not running again, or, some type of scandal, upsets the entire administration, then perhaps he's well positioned. Oddly enough, though, even if things were to happen sooner where it looked like Republicans would want to, challenge the president in the primary, other candidates would probably be in the race as well. But that is probably the route he goes, rather than, as some people have talked about, going for an independent bid, which would more than likely just play more of a Ross Perot spoiler type of role.
One of the things that we have seen, though, is him taking a more middle stance on everything.
Yes.
With gun control. I mean, just recently, do you think that that's kind of indicative of what may be coming?
Yeah, so that's a challenge for all politicians, because you have a primary season where you need to run towards your base, and we see that with the governor candidates right now, where none of them are really, that close to Kasich at the moment, which is odd in light of his popularity. And then after you win the primary voters, you win the diehard Republicans, the diehard liberals, the diehard Democrats, you have to run back to the middle. And so he's kind of standing at the middle, but that doesn't necessarily play well with a primary audience. So that will be the big question, as to how does he position himself to where he can still appeal to most Republicans. Republicans still 80% approve of Donald Trump, so there's still a long time before anything would really change where he'd have a real shot. But he's putting himself out there.
Do you think that will make tonight's State of the State that much more interesting?
Yes, absolutely. Just the fact that it is his last one, often this is kind of a goodbye tour, and maybe they try to anoint the successor, but just the fact that he is as much a national figure as he is a state figure at the moment, maybe even more so, does make for some interesting dynamics. And even some of the things he says tonight, some of his talking points, that you might see Democrats more more supportive of it than Republicans. So just the way that he's going to kind of cut across party lines tonight will be interesting. All right,
thanks so much. Always a pleasure to have you.
Thank
and again,
you.
You can watch Governor Kasich's final State of the State address online. That speech set to begin at 7 from his hometown of Westerville at Otterbein University. Thank you again, Dr. Lee Hanna. We always appreciate it.
Go Raiders. 2 big games today.
There you go.